Hi-hats don't sound right. That is a very common problem plaguing drummers. There are a lot of reasons though why our hi-hats might not sound right. Obviously the cymbals have a lot to do with it. If you've got cheap hi-hats, they're not going to sound as good as expensive hi-hats. But you'd also be surprised to know how much the hi-hat stand actually plays a part in the cleanliness and the precision of that hi-hat sound. Obviously it has a lot to do with the skill of your left foot in conjunction with your hands, coordinating those well and being precise in your playing. But let's say you've got that down and you've practiced that a lot, the stand really does play a big part. There are a number of things we can look at right here on the stand. Spring tension, bottom hat angle, the clutch tightness, the cymbal distance, the hi-hat height, so how high you have the clutch on it, the precision of your left foot, precision of your hands, etc. So I'll show you how I adjust my hi-hat. I'll put the cymbals on here and give a demonstration of how I like to do them and why, along with a little bit of a sound demonstration. First off, let's make sure we're assembling everything correctly. So we've got these extra pieces right here combined with the hi-hat stand itself. Of course, we've got the rod that goes up and down when we press on the pedal. So we've got all this tight and everything looks good. We've got this metal plate that's going to go on first, and we can raise or lower one side of it with the screw on the back. That's going to change the angle of the bottom hat. So we've got our felt there that we'll put the bottom hi-hat on. Pretty much any hi-hat clutch you see that comes with a hi-hat stand, besides the really cheap ones, are going to look about like this. So you've got a few different parts here. Let's make sure we understand what all these are for, because there really are a lot of moving parts here. We've got this bottom piece here that we'll use to make sure everything's secure, that nothing's moving. We'll get to that in a second. First, let's take that off. Set it here for a second. So we've got the two felts. Obviously, cymbal goes in between the felts. So once we've got it sitting here on that felt, put the other felt on, and we'll tighten this thing down. What's cool about this piece right here, what you may not realize, is that it will only tighten so far. Eventually you keep tightening and it's just going to stop. It can only go so far. So we can use that to our advantage, and that's the way this was built. So we want to get that as tight as it'll go, which we've got it right now. That is snug. Now this is still loose. That's the way I want it, because you can adjust the looseness with these top pieces. Let's say I want it super loose. Well, here we are, super loose. And now we can screw these against each other to make sure nothing goes anywhere. It's going to stay just like that. So even though we've got these tightened together where they're not going to move, we've got this bottom one tightened down all the way where it's not going to move, we still have a nice loose hi-hat. Now this is all extremely subjective. Everybody's got their different opinion, different taste on how loose or tight they want that hi-hat. So I've got to adjust it the way I want it, just a little bit loose. Because I think without that looseness, you can't get a good swish kind of sound or a sizzle sound, open hat sound out of the hi-hats. So I've got everything screwed down nice and tight where it's not going anywhere, but it's also loose at the same time. Now another side note, so this piece came with another screw that goes in right here. That additional screw you can tighten down just to ensure that this thing is not going to get loose. However, I've never had a problem with this getting loose. It's never caused me any problems as long as I have it tightened down. So I've never even used that screw. It actually fell out a while back. I found it later, but I just keep it in my cymbal bag and don't even bother to put it on. So it comes with it, that's what it's for. Now here at this stage, we've got a lot of varying opinions as far as how much distance we want between the hats. Some drummers might go all the way up here, others are going to be right here. If you're playing jazz, you're doing a lot of the hi-hat chick sound, you're going to want a lot of space so you can get a really solid chick like that, because that's a big part of your drum sound. That's what's working alongside the ride cymbal to drive the groove in jazz. Now if you're a rock drummer, you might have it a little less far up. I've even had it this far down before. I've seen drummers do it this far down, so you're just opening it a little bit. This is good if you're playing 8th notes or 16th notes alongside a kick snare groove. Maybe your right hand's over on the ride or something. So we're just going like that the whole time we're playing, and because they're close together, it's easier to do that, it's more comfortable. So we can play whatever rhythm we want to. We can play fast, it's nice and easy. We can also get a nice closed sound. We can start to open it up. And get a great sizzle, so that's cool. Let's say we're playing this pattern. So it wasn't really opening all the way while I did that. Maybe that's the sound we're going for, but I wanted to be a tss, 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 like a really strong, really emphasized open sound. I found that it's easier to do that if I give it more height. So I've actually got the cymbal all the way up here, pretty high, where I can really let it go up a lot. I'm going to adjust the screw on the back again a little bit just to even things out a little more. We've got a lot of angle on the bottom hat, so I'm going to level it just a bit so we've still got some angle. So now I can really open it up and really emphasize that open hat sound. And it sounds a lot better. There's a really great drummer, Paul Mabury. He's a Nashville session guy, plays on a lot of records. There's a great video of him demonstrating how he gets his hi-hat sound, and he describes it as like a sucking sound, like and it's really funny listening to him describe it doing mouth noises, but it's really true and really accurate to the way he plays. And he adjusted about this high up, so it almost feels like a abnormally large distance here, about almost 2 inches when it's all the way open between the bottom hat and the top hat. But that's allowing him, as he hits it, to go continue to raise it up. So you're hitting it midway up and it's still going up. And it really gives it that really nice, clean, precise open hat sound, which I'm a really big fan of. That way you don't get kind of the accidental, unless that's what you're going for. This really gives you the option to really open up the sound and get a really nice, clean, slicing, that's how I like to think of it, a slicing open hat sound. We can also talk about different places on the hi-hat to play with our stick, whether we're playing down here, or playing right here, or playing like this, or something with the tip, or maybe the shoulder of the stick. But just another tip, and again, this is very subjective and very much up to your personal taste, the way you like to play. If I'm playing a closed hi-hat thing, you can get a lot more rebound off the hi-hat if you're playing with the shoulder of the stick about right here on the edge. So not this far up, because that's not much rebound, but more like this. And so you can play pretty fast using your wrist and fingers, and it's got a nice bounce to it, as opposed to if you're playing like this. You can still get some of the same speed, it just feels a little bit clumsier, a little more rigid, less of a smooth bounce to it. So there's just some differences. Now as you're opening it up, you might slide the stick a little further up to get a punch, more like this. Kind of like that, so you're staying down here on the edge when you're playing closed, and you're sliding up when you're doing that open sound. So you're playing down close to the edge here when the hats are closed, then sliding it up to get a little bit more weight into it when it's open to really cut through with that open hat sound. So that's how I like to play the hi-hat. As far as the sticks go, as far as angle and all that goes, we can continue to play around with the angle of the bottom hat too for altering our foot sound. Obviously it's going to be quieter if the bottom hat is level, and if we have the top hat tighter, because then it's a more even sound. Whereas if we've got the top hat loose, the bottom hat angled, we're going to get a much stronger chick sound, great for jazz or anything where we really want to emphasize it. Plus we can splash more easily that way. Where we press it down, let it buzz a little, because we've got the top one loose and the bottom one angled, it can buzz before we actually close it. So that's cool also. I hope this helped you improve your hi-hat sound. These are just some steps I've gone through because this is something I've had to work on a lot in my playing. The hi-hat is probably the most difficult instrument on the drum set to play really well. It's got a lot of moving parts. Not only are you using your hands, your sticks on the hats, but you're also using your foot, and you've got to time those, and so that just takes a lot of practice. Between adjusting the looseness of the top hat, the angle of the bottom hat, the height of the clutch, you can really drastically change how your hats are sounding, regardless of your current playing level, your current skill, your current playing technique. And so that's a great starting point for improving your hi-hat sound, even if you're a beginner or an intermediate player. Something else to think about that I almost forgot to mention was overall hi-hat height. So obviously this depends on how high you're sitting, how high your snare is, because you want to be able to cross over. So you've got your snare over here and you're playing with your right hand here. But something else I've come across recently in playing around with how high I have my hi-hat, if I have it up really high, I feel like it gives me a lot of room to work with my snare, to hit the snare hard, have my right hand out of the way. However, that often results in hitting it in an angle more like this. The higher up it is, the lower your hand's going to be, and so the more likely you are to hit it at this angle. If you do this, you get less rebound, and you get that clumsier sound that I was showing a second ago, hitting that way instead of this way. So that's something to be aware of. I've noticed that I'd really rather have it a little bit lower, as low as it can go without feeling like it's in the way of my hand crossover action playing the snare, just so that I can play more up on top of it like this, still with the shoulder of the stick, but more on top where I can get a nice rebound, a really nice, smooth, musical sound. So play around with that. Try not to get your hi-hats too high. At the same time, make sure they're high enough to stay out of the way. I really hope that helped you with your hi-hat sound, getting the most out of the hi-hats you've got on the stand you've got by adjusting it differently and maybe playing around with how you're playing them. I really do think that the hi-hat is the most difficult instrument within the drum set to play well. It's really easy to play it sloppy, and playing it with precision, getting a nice clean sound out of it is not easy, and it's something I have to practice all the time. If that helped you out, then subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and share it, and don't forget to check out some of these other videos also. Thanks so much for watching.